I wanted to point out one of the least obvious mistakes that I have seen foreigners make over and over and over again in different countries. This is a mistake. It's so universal, but it's oftentimes undetected. It goes undetected. People think there's nothing wrong with acting like this. However, we know that there's a lot wrong with it. And while it is okay to expect people to speak English, what happens when you go to a new country is that you have a ton of people that may not speak English. This applies to Asia, this applies to Africa, this applies to Latin America, Europe. No matter where you go, as a foreigner, I think we have the responsibility to make at least an effort to speak the local language, even if the improvement is so minimal, so small that it's almost invisible. From a local's perspective, think about it. If somebody came to your country, they wanted to have a good time, they wanted to talk to you, you would appreciate it if they made a little bit of an effort to learn your language, even if they stumble, even if they just speak a handful of words. It creates a better impression. It's unfortunate that many people don't want to put in that effort. And no matter how old you are, any person can learn at least, I would say, 50 to 100 words. And that can already make a big difference. And you can learn a lot more by just listening to people, listening to how they are interacting, listening to what they're talking about. And after time, your language skills will improve. They always improve. And I can tell you this because I've lived in Asia, I've lived in Europe, I've lived in North America, in Latin America. I know that it's so important. And the locals, if they see, hey, there's this foreigner, this gringo, and he makes such an effort to communicate with us, they want that. And oftentimes you find people that also speak some English, and you also find people that speak a lot of English. But to go to a country and to expect that just because you are from France, every person in other country has to speak French as well, it's just not right. It's the same as if that person came to France with the expectation to meet people that only speak Spanish, right? It's just weird to have that expectation. No, there's this thing called comfort zone. And in this comfort zone, we feel warm, right? Warm and fuzzy. And we don't want to get out of this comfort zone because outside of this comfort zone, there's danger. And anytime you expose yourself to a new country, a new culture, a new language, you are in danger. It's very difficult to do that. However, once you open up, and even if it's just listening and trying to communicate a little bit, the locals will appreciate it. Your self esteem will go up because you yourself can see, hey, I can actually make this effort and I can improve myself, even if it's incrementally, very invisibly. I can improve myself. And that's more important than anything. And like I said, that applies to everyone. This doesn't just apply to Americans moving abroad. This applies to Europeans too, even though in Europe people speak multiple languages because it's just how they're brought up, right? Countries are really small and people have been to countries from a very early age on. So somebody living in, say, Italy might speak French, might speak Spanish, might speak a different language than somebody living in Canada or somebody living in North America. So we completely understand that. But if you go to a new country and to have a good time and to not become too dependent on other people too, try at least, make an effort, try learn the language, even if it's just a little bit. And after time, you'll feel better and it will be much easier to integrate. It's really a matter of your personal openness. When I was in Asia, I didn't make a whole lot of effort. I did learn some Japanese, but during my time in Vietnam, I learned some words and people appreciated that, but I never became fluent in Vietnamese. That was solely my mistake. I could have done that. I just didn't have enough patience, dedicate enough time to do that, but I could have done it. In hindsight, I wish I would have spent more time learning the language. It would have helped me understand people a lot better than during the time that I lived there. And from that point on, I always made the decision now, wherever I go, whether it was Portugal, whether it was Eastern Europe, whether it's Mexico, Spain, no matter where I'm going, I want to make sure that I am at least trying. So when you're at least trying, it just feels a lot better for yourself. The people around you, like I said, they will appreciate it, and you will likely have a better time in the new country, especially during the starting phase. What have you observed? Because you have foreigner friends. And you've told me mixed things about them. You said there's some that have, spent some time learning Spanish, but then you also said that there's some that just haven't. So what's your take here? Do people have problems? Is it easier for some people than others? Like, what are some of the things that you're seeing on the ground in Paraguay?
Yeah, we have a lot of people that are coming from Europe, mostly. And the difference between them is the age. I think that an important factor of learning a new language is your age. Some normally people that have more than almost 50 years, for example, they don't want anymore to learn a language, and they isolate themselves from Paraguayans because they don't speak Spanish, or and they refuse to speak English sometimes. So they normally are spending more time with their groups, which is fine. It's their decision, of course. But if you want to, for example, Spanish, we consider like Spanish is a very strong language. There are a lot of countries that speak Spanish, and as a Spanish speaker, I can also understand Portuguese, for example, because it's very similar. And in Paraguay, we speak also Guarani. So if you want to communicate better with people, and like you said, it makes a huge difference if you put some effort on trying to communicate with your neighbors, with local people. They are going to respect and admire that from you, and they are going to want to help you. For example, here in Asuncion, we have some meetings. For example, there is one app called website called Meetup, for example. So every Wednesday you can have a meetup to speak in English and in Spanish, so you can exchange languages. And also you have the help of apps. If you are not social, you can also use apps. We have a special app to learn Guarani, for example, few words, but you are going to make so good impressing in with your local friends. For example, if you say some word in Guarani. So I think that learning a language can be very difficult, but if you use it daily or for the reasons you have, you're going to make a very, very great difference. For example, you're not a tourist, you're a traveler, you're a migrant, you're someone who is moving, but it's not only for fun because probably you're working online, so you're not a tourist anymore. So you're going probably try to connect with people, and the best way to connect is language.
As you said, right? You just speak a few words of Warni. Uh, it makes such a big difference. Like if people can see, hey, look at him. I mean, he makes an effort to do it. And the question is, how can you get close to somebody when you don't speak the language? Right. So the question you want to be asking is, how can I get closer to that person? And the answer is through communication, speaking a few words, even if it's just minimal effort. And one thing I also want to point out, and it's also very common that when a foreigner first comes to a new country, a lot of the times they think everyone's out there to get them. That's not how it is. There's good and bad people everywhere. There's criminals in every country, and in some areas more than others. However, what's important is that you also trust in the good of that country, which exists in many, many cases. And so when you learn the language, when you learn to integrate, you will see that, wow, people there are actually a lot nicer than I thought. And people appreciate it. Like Jesse also said, just speaking a few words of Warni can change your life. It can really open up the door for new opportunities for you. It's probably not easy to change. You coming to a new country and you speaking a new language is not so easy, but it will make you understand the culture, how people think, how they feel, what's important to them. That's what being an expat is all about. Subscribe now and turn on alerts to never miss any of my future nomadism, dating, and business advice videos. Thank you for watching.